Hey there, marketing researchers. Today we're going to be presenting CSR Effects and Dish Soap Promotions, which was our topic that we pursued for our market research study. This was for Dr. Baker's Marketing 470 class in fall of 2018. I'm Jenna Giuliano,
I'm Austin Muchler.
I'm Sam Attar.
and today we're going to go over how we pursued this project idea.
For our market research project, we were intrigued by Dish Soap product packaging that already reflected potential for experiments surrounding the concept of corporate social responsibility, or CSR, and how this kind of promotional imagery for cleaning products affects consumers' brand perceptions and purchase decisions. This was the motivation behind our study, in which we sought to learn more about through conducting secondary and primary research.
A plethora of research studies have been conducted on the efforts of CSR and BSR, brand social responsibility, and how these responsible brand representations and actions affect consumer perceptions respectively. Most studies we found in our secondary research reported positive feedback from consumers when BSR or CSR was utilized by a brand, with results including positive brand perceptions of a corporation's products, potential to increase company and brand equity, and opportunity for consumers to relate brand building to their own self-concept.
However, other research findings also indicated there's a major flip side to the coin when it comes to brands and companies embracing CSR. In their 2010 analysis, John Pelosa and Jinzi Sheng define value as an interactive, relativistic preference experience that's only created when a firm and its stakeholders are in agreement with one another. Because each individual stakeholder perceives brand actions as positive or negative based on their own frame of reference, it makes CSR and BSR success more difficult to measure. This perception-based issue is echoed by the findings of Kanchan, Bhattacharya, and Sankan Sen in their 2010 study, in which they stated their findings: trade-offs consumers evaluate between CSR and corporate ability can negatively impact consumer reactions to CSR. These contrary findings added to our intrigue regarding how effective social responsibility efforts really are in capturing consumers' attention and sales.
This secondary research led to the development of our research question for our Dish Soap study. Our question is, are consumer intentions to purchase affected by brands advertising their social responsibility efforts? Which is to investigate if consumer intentions to purchase, in this case Dish Soap, are affected by brands advertising their social responsibility efforts on product packaging. As a second qualifying layer to this research, we also wanted to test if social responsibility on product packaging could sway purchase intentions even if price competition was a factor.
To pursue the answers to these questions, we decided to craft an experiment in the form of a Qualtrics survey. This survey was composed of three main parts: introductory and screener questions, image-oriented questions, and demographic questions at the end of the survey. In this slide, you can see the breakdown of what was included in each of these sections. What's most important to note is the 1/3 under the Part 2 question heading, as this section was repeated 3 times for each respondent, but with 3 different randomly selected images. We also only limited our study to adults 18 years or older residing within the United States.
The survey itself is composed of 42 total questions to be answered by each respondent. However, several of these questions were sectioned into relevant groups in the form of Likert scale questions. As shown here, this is the set of questions each respondent was asked to respond to after viewing one of these 6 Dish Soap images. Of these 6, each respondent would see 3 of them, selected randomly, essentially creating 3 small experiments within our survey.
In order to generate respondents for our survey, our research team utilized a convenient sampling method to tap into our personal online networks. All 3 researchers published the Qualtrics survey link across personal Facebook, Instagram, and LinkedIn accounts, as well as distributed by text and email, all featuring the incentive of a chance to win a $30 Amazon gift card, which was raffled off accordingly. In order to bulk up our sample size even more, we also developed and distributed a Facebook advertisement that was set to appear on the Facebook feeds of users 18 and older residing in the United States. These methods combined generated a total sample size of 81 respondents, of which 66 were used for data analysis.
To evaluate if the brand Dish Soap packaging with CSR imagery actually generated more positive consumer perceptions of the product and affected consumer willingness to pay, we conducted a series of statistical analyses and tests to see if our CSR-based imagery generated higher answer scores than the standard product images across several survey questions, which would indicate more positive feelings toward the product that we could possibly attribute to CSR-laden packaging.
Firstly, if you'll recall the set of Likert scale questions we introduced earlier, we began by analyzing these responses by compiling and averaging all of the question scores for each promotional image as represented by the values in the descriptive statistics chart seen here. We were surprised to see that all of the images randomly shown to respondents, the non-CSR Dawn Dish Soap image was the one that received the highest average response score. Method Dish Soap garnered the largest difference between the mean scores of the CSR and non-CSR image results, which may indicate a positive CSR effect of CSR imagery specifically for that brand. Lastly, there was nearly no difference in the average scores when comparing the CSR and non-CSR images for Dr. Bronner's brand dish soap.
One of the statistical tests we chose to run to measure how positively consumers responded to the various promotional images shown was the chi-squared goodness of fit test. We chose to analyze a question from the first introductory portion of our survey that asked respondents if they felt product brands were viewed more positively by shoppers if they participated in CSR. Due to our small sample size, we were unable to conclude that these results were statistically significant. However, it is still interesting to observe that those respondents over the age of 38 in our sample responded to the question less positively on average, therefore possibly feeling less intensely that brand CSR helps generate positive consumer perceptions, which may also be self-reflective.
Related to this observation noted from the chi-squared test, we also found that older audiences scored lower in their belief in the overall importance of CSR when we conducted an ANOVA analysis, grouping the respondents by age, as depicted in this bar chart here. Unfortunately, we are also unable to conclude these results were statistically significant, most likely due to our small sample.
Lastly, we wanted to use the multilinear regression model we constructed with our survey data in order to create a predictive model for estimating to what extent a given individual would be willing to pay $1 more for a bottle of Method dish soap with a CSR label on the product packaging. We chose to create this model using Method dish soap due to the fact that this dish soap brand had the highest positive increase in the cumulative mean score of our Likert scale questions when the CSR label was viewed by respondents. After conducting this predictive test, our R-squared of 0.191, which accounts for 19.1% of our variation, shows that this test allows us to predict the willingness to pay $1 more on a scale of 1 to 5 for Method soap with a CSR label 19.1% better than guessing. Our hypothesis for the highest predicted value would be a woman who believes CSR is important for business, a 5 on our Likert scale, who has purchased a product due to CSR efforts in the past, and who has seen the Method dish soap with the CSR label, will create the highest value for the Y dependent variable, which is the willingness to pay $1 more for Method dish soap that promotes CSR efforts. This resulted in a calculated value of 3.78, which indicates a slightly higher willingness to pay, a $1 increase on Method labels that use CSR imagery on a scale of 1 to 5 than the average, because the mean of our dependent variable response was a 3. Therefore, our hypothesis for the lowest predicted value would be a man who strongly disagrees that CSR is important, a 1 on our Likert scale, who has never purchased a product due to CSR efforts, and who did not see the Method dish soap with a CSR label, resulting in a minimum willingness to pay average of 1.08. And actually would be a man who is unsure if he has purchased a product due to CSR efforts.
Because we were unable to establish statistical significance for any of our tests, our conclusions represent possibilities based on the trends we observed in our study. And an opportunity for further investigation, we observed that CSR effect was greatest for Method soap, and there was a slightly negative effect observed for Dawn dish soap, and there was almost no effect for Dr. Bronner's dish soap. We also concluded that respondents between 18 to 24 had the highest response scores regarding CSR, which means there were more positive reactions than older respondents, particularly 54 and plus.
And as we touched on throughout our presentation, our sample size inhibited us from reaching any statistical conclusions about our data and consumer perceptions of CSR and dish soap packaging. However, through our research, we found trends that indicate that brand-specific CSR effects may exist. So, for instance, seeing that Method dish soap received positive scores when CSR imagery was used, but Dawn dish soap did not. So in these cases, additional specific research may be needed to ensure a negative effect doesn't exist for the specific brand that we're studying. We also found that CSR effects may vary in intensity by age group. So this would be important for brands to consider the target market that they're looking to really target their products towards. And lastly, as we just touched on, a larger scale study would be needed for more conclusive evidence on either of these topics. Thank you so much for listening to our presentation. We had a wonderful semester in your class, and we hope that you enjoyed our insights from your teachings.